and welcome to the penultimate episode of the RAS200 premieres. Today I am joined by the team from Cornwall Sea2Stars. Okay, so please could you introduce yourselves and your roles at Cornwall Sea2Stars?
Okay, my name is Clint O'Connor. I'm chairman of Cornwall Sea2Stars, and I should point out straight away, I am an amateur. I'm not a professional. I haven't worked in the industry at all. Cornwall Sea2Stars came about as a result of RAS200 setting up a meeting at Goonhilly for various organisations in Cornwall that were interested in participating in RAS200. And I was a member of Roseland Observatory, and I was requested by the director of Roseland Observatory to attend that meeting, which I did. And at the time, I'll be honest, I had no idea what it was all about. At the end of the meeting, or after the meeting was over, the RAS turned to the various different groups that had attended the meeting and asked us to come together to form one organisation to put a submission to RAS200. And this is basically what we did. The groups consisted of Exeter University at Falmouth, Goonhilly, Truro High School, Roseland Observatory, and Cornwall Astronomical Society. And basically, we came together to form a separate organisation, which we called Cornwall Sea2Stars. And the objective of that organisation was to take the sciences of astronomy and geophysics and astrophysics out to the community in Cornwall. Because Cornwall is a very distant, very sparsely populated area. So the facilities that people in the southeast or the Midlands or the north would have automatically to participate in these sciences aren't always available in Cornwall. So that's how we set up. We put this proposition to the RAS, and after a bit of badgering, they finally decided that they would give us some money.
How about you, Anita? What's your role within Cornwall Sea2Stars?
So I'm Anita Heward. I'm one of the directors of Cornwall Sea2Stars. As Clint has already said, I attended the meeting at Goonhilly, and I'd already had some discussions with some of the partners. So with Brian Sheen, who's the director of Roseland Observatory, and John Dean, who's the head of sciences at Truro High School for girls. And we'd had some ideas on what we might be able to do with regards to applying for an RAS200 award. And as Clint said, following that meeting, there were lots of different ideas thrown into the pot, lots of different organisations that came together, and we eventually put together this proposal that's based around having a trailer. So we have an exhibition trailer that we've been taking out to country shows, to festivals, to village fetes, events, and also just generally trying to engage with bits of the community that wouldn't normally think about astronomy or geophysics. As Clint says, Cornwall's kind of a long way sometimes from everywhere else. It can feel a bit like that. The opportunities for young people in terms of getting jobs in STEM in Cornwall are maybe more difficult, or the expectation would be that they would have to move away from home. And so we really wanted to be able to highlight what is actually going on in Cornwall. I mean, Clint's just listed how many organisations have an interest in some way in astronomy or geophysics in the county, and there's quite a lot and growing all the time. But also there's a lot of amateurs, there's a lot of enthusiasm. You've got beautiful night skies down in Cornwall. There's a lot of dark spaces where you can really see the Milky Way. You can get a really good view of the night sky. It's a very interesting geological landscape, very ancient landscape as well. So there's people who are interested in archaeology and what the standing stones and stone circles what kind of relationship they have to constellations and features in the night sky and solstices, etc. So I think what's brilliant about Cornwall Sea2Stars is the diversity of people that have come together within that, from big companies like Goonhilly, universities like Exeter, Campbell School of Mines, and then amateur astronomers, individuals like me. My day job is working for a planetary science organisation called Europlanet that offers access to facilities and services to do with planetary science. But I'm involved in the communications aspect of that, so it's been great to be able to kind of bring some of the resources we have there to Cornwall and just kind of take them out around the country and talk to people.
It sounds, I mean, it's fantastic, obviously, and I think it sounds like a lot of it hinges on the size and the accessibility of Cornwall to astronomy and geophysics. You know, you mentioned the dark skies and the stone circles and that kind of thing. So well, Anita, you've answered this, but Clint, what was your day job, or what is your day job at the moment? And did you know what you were letting yourself in for when you joined this project?
Well, I had been working at a sixth form college, Truro College, well, a post-16 college is a better way to describe it. I was retired. I had been what's called a support tutor, and the idea of that was that if people struggling with maths, physics, chemistry, engineering, would book me in for one-to-one tuition or small group tuition. So my job therefore covered broadly all the sciences. So I retired from that. I continued to teach chemistry evening class for a few years, finally retired from that, but I've kept in contact with sixth form colleges as an exam invigilator. And I'm now at a new sixth form college called Callyworth near Bodmin, which is only just 3 years old, but is already Ofsted outstanding. And I still do at these colleges talks on behalf of Cornwall Sea2Stars to either STEM groups or to what they call their academic academy, which is basically non-curriculum activities in addition to the normal work. And so I'm still doing that, but officially I'm supposed to be retired, but it hasn't quite worked out.
Oh no, it sounds like you're probably more busy now than you were when you were working, so to speak.
Possibly. Sea2Stars, really, I'm just a cog. Although I'm chairman, I think that is just an honorary position, because I'm not one of the experts at all. As I said, I'm much more of a generalist. But the main thing is, I have a passion for communicating science to people, and particularly to younger people, and also particularly to, I don't want to sound sexist, but particularly to girls and to women, because I don't think they get the opportunities. Even now, I mean, I know the world has changed, but it still hasn't changed enough. Mm-hmm. So when I talk to children, I try particularly to get girls and young women interested and involved, and to try and get them to understand that they must grab it with both hands, but there is much future now for them as for anybody else.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think there is still this sort of gender disparity? And do you think it's different in Cornwall to the rest of England, or do you think it's nationwide?
I think it's nationwide. I think, again, in fairness to the colleges where I work, the colleges are very good. I mean, there is no disparity in the staff at the colleges. It's purely on ability. But there is still the feeling that, particularly, I would say, amongst the slight underachievers, that the opportunities are not there. So I think for the very brightest, they feel that the opportunities have opened up. But for just the slight underachievers, they feel it's not there. And this is particularly what I want to give to them. So, for example, when I do talks, I tend to emphasize the role of females who are usually unsung heroines in astronomy.
Can you name some at the moment for us?
Well, obviously Caroline Herschel, yes, and the young lady who discovered that stars are just hydrogen, nearly just hydrogen and helium, and Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin, who in 1919 would not be given a degree by Cambridge, although she passed all her exams, because they didn't give degrees to women.
Yeah.
So she ended up going to the States, studying there for her PhD. She made a fantastic job studying spectra of stars, and she came to the conclusion that stars were mainly composed of hydrogen and helium. Her professor wouldn't accept it, but she forcefully put in her PhD thesis, these are my results. Other evidence may say that this is not true because nobody believed it, but these are my results. And a few years later, in fact, it was her own professor that discovered that she was right, gave her the credit, but the rest of the world gave him the credit.
It's a shame that it used to be like that, and hopefully it has changed in the last 100 years, or is changing anyway. And organisations like yourselves and teachers like yourselves do help with that message, definitely. So you said that you all kind of met at one of our RAS200 town hall meetings down in I think it was at Goonhilly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And one of my colleagues, Robert Massey, went to that on behalf of the RAS. And I think he'd been to Cornwall before, but even after that, he mentioned that he was surprised at how large Cornwall is. And I think a lot of people that haven't visited Cornwall don't really understand how big it is. And I think that's probably one of the key challenges that you have been faced with Sea2Stars. So do you think that because you're such a strong partnership of lots of different organisations, that's really helped you set out what you wanted to achieve?
I think partly, but I go back to what Anita said about the trailer, because the trailer is essential. Because what we can do, because Cornwall is such a big county, we can fill the trailer with exhibits, with telescopes, with screens, with activities, and then take that to the smallest communities. And that is very much the key. And then again, coming back to what you said about the different organisations. So we have expertise in different areas. So normally we get perhaps 4 or 5 of us go on to an event on the trailer. So we've got 4 or 5 different areas of expertise. So we can talk generally, but you know, if people have got questions in depth, then normally we've got someone who can deal with that on site.
And what sort of things do you do within the trailer? It's not just astronomy, obviously, it's geophysics as well. So do you have items in the trailer, or is it the people that come with the trailer that make it special? Or tell us more about the trailer.
Sorry, we have items in the trailer. I mean, for example, a very simple thing, but we have a series of plastic bottles, and each plastic bottle weighs 1 kilo on the moon or a different planet. So you pick up a plastic bottle on Earth, and that's 1 kilo. But you pick up the same plastic bottle on Jupiter, and on Earth that would be about 10 kilos. Yeah. So each bottle weighs. So because this is something that we think is very, very important, is that we're hands-on. We touch things, pick things up. So we've got telescopes that people can actually touch, feel, look at, stick their head down, you know, twist. Obviously, they're not the most expensive telescopes in the land, but they are, you know, this is the essential part. It's hands-on. And this sum of gravity is a very simple illustration, but I find it's very effective, because you then start to discuss what gravity is, what causes gravity, Why is gravity stronger on Jupiter than on the Earth? Why is gravity weaker on the Moon than on the Earth? And so on. So you get into a discussion. You get into a discussion while they're handling and touching something. And that ease it in. And I think this is a very important part, the essence of the trailer. And so I'm going on a bit, but the same thing, we have a series of samples of meteorites. Now, you can go to any museum in the land and see a meteorite. But if you come to Cornwall Sea2Stars, not only will you see a meteorite, but you will pick it up, you will hold it, you will smell it, you will look at it, you will see its structure. And we start to tell a story. And telling that story while the meteorite is in your hand and you're feeling the weight of it, that story has much more impact than just looking at something in a glass case.
I think stories are very important, aren't they? So it sounds like there's, over the years, there's been a fair amount of astronomy, geophysics outreach efforts going on in Cornwall, but maybe not as joined up as Sea2Stars is. So what is it that makes Sea2Stars so special?
Well, I think it's just what you said, that we are joined up. We are from different organisations, and our subject is, you know, we're not an astronomy club, we're not an observatory, we're not a school, we're not a college. We are specifically an RAS funded organisation taking knowledge and opportunity out to people in Cornwall. In a week or so's time, there's going to be it's called a webinar, a web seminar, run by Cornwall Sea2Stars, Hilly, and also by the Cornwall Space Centre, aimed at STEM students to tell them about future opportunities for space in Cornwall. So we've collaborated with these people to put this webinar up and to organise it.
And how important is it that you concentrate on space, the space industry in Cornwall for the people of Cornwall? Like, is it, does that help them want to stay in Cornwall for their jobs, or is it because it's such a big place, you know, or is it more than that?
That's a difficult one to answer, because so, you know, the space industry in Cornwall hasn't really got going yet. Although, I mean, Hilly was basically shrink wrapped for 20 years almost. It's coming out now. It's starting to be a communication centre. It's starting to be an employer, but it's still very small. Yeah. Same with the Cornwall Space Centre. I mean, obviously the COVID lockdown basically has put development at Cornwall Space Centre on a halt. So we don't know what's going to happen there. One of the good things is Campbell School of Mines at Falmouth, now part of Exeter University, is still a major centre for geoengineering. You know, so that's Cornwall's history coming into the 21st century. And we're now starting to look at other mineral opportunities in Cornwall. They're talking about reopening one of the old tin mines. There is still tin there at South Crofty is the name of the mine, which we now think is going to be viable. And tin now is not just used for tin cans, but is used for solder in every piece of electronic equipment. So there is going to be a big future market for tin. Similarly, lithium. There is plenty of lithium in Cornwall. A lot of it particularly is in mine waste. But again, lithium is going to be a very important mineral in our batteries. So there is a future in Cornwall. It's not there yet. That's the problem.
It's nice that it sort of links the history of Cornwall and the future together. Yes. And it's nice, you know, mentioning things like geoengineering, because after all, the RAS is astronomy and geophysics, and a lot of what we do just tends to be astronomy related maybe because of the expertise of the people that do it. So it is nice to have a little bit more of a focus on the geophysics sometimes, and Cornwall lets us do that. So in the few years that Sea2Stars has been running, what are your personal highlights or things that have made you feel proud about the project?
I think some of the schools we've been to, particularly some junior schools, we've taken a team to a junior school several times, and the enthusiasm, not just of the children, but of the teachers and the parents. So we'll do a series of activities, and again, it's making things stick, if you like. So we have a simple activity, which always with the teacher's permission, we tell a slightly rude joke to 9 and 10-year-olds, and they love it.
What joke is it, dare I ask?
Well, the activity is to make a scale model of the solar system. And basically, with a length of pill roll, you keep folding it in half. At each point where you fold it in half, you can put a planet. So you start off with stickers of the planets and the sun, and your till roll, you put the sun at one end and you put dwarf planet Pluto at the other. You then fold it in half, and you then ask the children what planet is halfway between the sun and dwarf planet Pluto. And you'll get a few guesses. They might say Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. And then you say to the children, well, don't forget, the solar system is the same proportion as your body. So if the sun is your head and Pluto's your feet, what's halfway between your head and your feet? Uranus.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I bet that gets their attention straight away.
Yeah. It's silly, but it's something they'll never forget. But what it then does, it makes them realise, well, between the sun and Uranus, we've got Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then beyond Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So how vast the solar system is.
Fantastic. How about you, Anita? What have been your highlights or things that have made you feel very proud about this project?
Oh, there's a lot of things. I love going to the agricultural shows. I think that's such a fantastic opportunity to be standing there, and you have all sorts that come past, from families to farmers to other people on trade stalls, and you have some amazing conversations. I think, as Clint says, one of the brilliant things is talking to family groups. And often you get kids kind of running up to you and telling you everything that they've learned about space in school, and the parents going, I didn't know they knew any of that. So through the kids, the parents are engaging with space, which is sometimes great. And sometimes you get kids that will just talk to you for half an hour, 45 minutes, just because they're so excited to have somebody that shares their passion for space, that they maybe have learned this at school, and they go home and they talk to their parents, and the parents aren't interested, and they're really, really excited to have somebody that they can talk to, and they're incredibly knowledgeable, and some of them are incredibly ambitious as well. But that's fantastic. And we had an event at Goonhilly last year for the Apollo 50, which was a brilliant experience. I mean, I think from my perspective, that was the busiest event that I've been on with Cornwall Sea2Stars. But again, all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life came up and talked to us, as Clint said, held meteorites, looked at telescopes, and just chatted away, and to be able to interact with that broad spectrum of people, and particularly people that had never really thought about it before and suddenly found that they were interested, is fantastic.
Of the children that have come up to you at these agricultural shows, have any of them told you Clint's joke?
No, not yet. Clint has told them the joke, but I've yet to have it sort of circulated. But I think we look for that kind of genuine spread of message coming back to us. That's a measure of success that we should look for.
Definitely. And with the trailer, have you visited all sort of reaches of Cornwall yet, or is that still to come?
Not yet. We're sort of focused more on the spine, and we've been more sort of in the central bit. So we haven't. I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, Clint. I don't think we've done anything yet on the peninsula. So right down near Land's End, Penzance, that area, and we're also a bit lacking up on the in the northeast, sort of towards the border with Devon. So we've sort of done quite a lot around Truro and on the Lizard and Scythians and up towards St Austell Way, but yeah, Sticker Steam Fair and the likes, but yeah, sort of the far reaches I think we're yet to get to. Is that right, Clint?
Yeah, that is correct. There's a vast area of northeast Cornwall which is unfortunately we just haven't been to, and we were hoping to go to in the year gone and this year coming. But this is very much dependent on village shows, because this is, as Anita had said, this is our theme. If we can get into village shows, agricultural shows, steam fairs, this is where we meet our public. But literally, you know, we've still got places to go to.
And I suppose the benefit of going to these shows, the public generally go to them anyway, not necessarily expecting to interact with astronomy and geophysics, and you kind of catch them when they're unaware and then hopefully inspire them for the future.
Yeah, that's very much so. I mean, just people walking past, you know, just, would you like to hold a meteorite? Instant attention. Oh, yeah. So once you've done that, then they start looking at everything else you've got. Yes, I mean, this is the very purpose of the trailer, that we can go to places and people aren't expecting to see us, but then they do see us and they become interested.
As Clint says, I mean, it's the trailer is really important. This is one of the things that we've really struggled with this year with the pandemic, is that while we can do activities online, we can do Zoom webinars. Clint's just been talking about the one that Goon and the team are organising on the 17th. But that tends to engage people that are already to some extent interested in space and astronomy, and that's not so much our target audience. We don't just do things with the trailer. We should also say, I mean, Clint's already mentioned going into schools, but we've also done events in libraries, in community centres. I think there was even one trial in the pub, was there? So you know, the trailer is great. It has some limitations in that it's big, it's heavy, it's not that easy to maneuver. So it's something that is really great for festival shows, etc., where we can take it. It can be there all day or even 2 or 3 days in the same place. It's not easy to take just for an hour or so, but it is also possible. We have activity modules we put together over the years with sort of different activities, so we can take boxes of activities from the trailer and then just take those out into a classroom, into a library, into a school, and do a smaller set of activities around those there.
So you briefly mentioned there the pandemic, obviously the key word of 2020. How has it affected what you had planned to do this year, and maybe what, you know, how things might change going forwards?
Well, basically, because we're a hands-on organisation, it's closed us down, literally, because we haven't been able to do anything. I'd say we're starting to open up a little bit now. I'm starting to do a couple of events at the post-16 colleges. So I will do, this month, I will do what's called an academic academy at Callywood College, where I'll give a talk to students on the processes within stars and the formation of the elements. But again, with all these talks, although they're not really relevant, I still take the meteorites with me because, yeah, at the end, right, come down, hold a meteor, then I can talk again, and to the iron meteorite that I showed earlier, talking about its history and the fact that that iron meteorite was formed in the core of a giant star, literally on the last day before that star went supernova, is how that iron was formed. And just having had the discussion on the processes within stars, and then again, just to pick up and hold that piece of iron and to realize that you are now holding in your hand something that was formed in the core of a dead star, yeah, makes an impression. So we're starting to do that. In the new year, I would like to start looking at primary schools and see if we can arrange visits socially distanced to primary schools, but again to work out, and this is something we'll need to work out with the schools and with the health and safety, how the children can touch objects, because this is the most important thing. So whether the children have to wear gloves or whether everything has to be sprayed at every interval or whatever, we don't know yet. But if you like, what I'm doing is using the post-16 colleges to work out a format that we could then take to junior schools. So again, talking at Callywood, the health and safety officer at Callywood, believe it or not, was a student when I was teaching at Truro College, and she still remembers me giving her trouble over her maths. But she had her revenge the other day. She gave me enormous grief for carrying a load of heavy objects and meteorites up the stairs when I've got a heart condition instead of using the lift. She gave me a terrible ticking off. So she and I will work together how children can safely handle these objects, and then I can take those lessons to primary schools.
So there will be some changes, but hopefully it will continue.
Yeah. The trouble is, until we lose the pandemic, until we lose COVID, I can't really see us taking the trailer out to events, because already some next year events in Cornwall have been cancelled. For example, the Isles of Scilly have cancelled the World Gig Championships in May because people would start booking now to come to the Isles of Scilly.
Yeah.
So we don't know yet how things are going to pan out.
It's difficult to see into the future, isn't it? With the project that's already happened, how have you got RAS fellows being involved in what you do, and has that been successful?
Well, in fact, there are quite a few RAS fellows as members of C2Stars. So I'll be honest, we haven't brought people down from the rest of the country yet, because in a sense, we already have them. We've got Anita, we've got Brian, we've got a chap called Gareth. I'm even a fellow myself. Quite how that worked out, I still don't know. But, so we haven't yet pulled on to the expertise of the RAS, mainly because of our distance, that it's so far for everybody to come down. But perhaps that might change. We don't know yet. That's still something for future planning. But as we said, it's all very difficult at the moment.
And if you've got the people there, then you don't need to call on others from elsewhere. You know,
yeah.
That's the beauty of the job.
I mean, we do cover. We have got geophysicists. We've got astronomers. We've got astrophysicists. So we cover pretty well.
With the project, have there been any outcomes that have been surprising to either of you? Sort of things that you might not have set out to do in the first place, or you know, things that have been unusual perhaps?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes we've had disappointment. I mean, one of our disappointments actually was the Royal Cornwall Show, which is the biggest show in Cornwall, and for some reason we just didn't get much of a reception there, and we don't understand why. I mean, we go to another show, Scythians, Anita's mentioned, Stidion's Agricultural Show, and we get the greatest reception. We get crowds, we get huge families coming in, we get all sorts. But that's because there's so much else at Royal Cornwall, I don't know. But I was definitely disappointed, we all were, with Royal Cornwall, which is the most expensive show, as you can imagine. It's the biggest show in Cornwall. And in fact, we hadn't planned to go there this year, and I don't think we'll go there next year. We seem to be much more effective at smaller local shows, but we don't know why.
Yeah. How about you, Anita?
Oh, I think what's interesting is that every time you go out, it's always slightly different. Even if you're doing, you know, the same event over a series of days. So you're at a show, or we've done a number of events down on the quay in Truro. Every morning, every afternoon has its own sort of character. You know, you may have a morning where you spend a lot of time talking to families with very small kids, and you know, we have a badge maker, and spend a lot of time kind of doing more arts and crafty kind of activities inspired by planets. And then you may end up with an afternoon where you have a lot of retired people coming and talking about perhaps their careers, perhaps their interest in amateur astronomy. So I think it is very varied, and it's always quite hard to know what you're going to be faced with on any particular day. But it is always interesting. There is always something within a session where you're out there that, you know, really makes it feel worthwhile. There's always somebody that you've spoken to, whether it's a 10-year-old, a 80-year-old, or whoever, that you know, really makes you feel that this is worth doing. It really has a benefit in reaching the community, and different bits of the community that you wouldn't normally, or perhaps wouldn't normally, engage with astronomy or geophysics.
And that's what you set out to do at the beginning as well. So that's brilliant. You know, you've done it. You can go home now. Is your trailer weather dependent? You know, are the activities in it and the things that you do, you know, because obviously astronomy is obviously weather dependent.
Absolutely. And this has been one of the big learning curves that we had at the beginning, is that not only is it important to develop activities that are fun and doable within, you know, the space that you have, but they have to be weather resistant. So having things with bits of paper when it's raining or windy is hopeless, because they blow away, they get crashed very quickly. So, you know, anything that's paper based needs to be sort of laminated, so that at least it's rain resistance. We often have to tie things down. Horizontal wind and rain in Cornwall can be quite a challenge. But I mean, these things that Clint's been mentioning, things like the meteorites, things like plastic bottles that you can pick up, have been great, and are kind of tried and tested, because they work within the sometimes challenging weather that we face in Cornwall. And even within a day, it can go from scorching sunshine to being quite cold and rainy pretty quickly. So yes, things need to be robust, and IT based things. So you know, having videos and things you can't really see terribly well in bright sunshine. So you may, even within a day, you may need to sort of slightly adapt what you're doing and change it up a bit.
And does I'm still so intrigued. I haven't managed to visit and seen the trailer in the flesh. I've only seen photos of it, but I would like to get down to Cornwall when we're allowed to move around the country again. Where does it live when it's not being used, and does it kind of pack up into something that looks like a caravan, or how does that work logistically?
It lives at Truro High School for Girls, and basically it just shuts up, and initially with everything inside it, but we now have a room at Truro College for Girls, but unfortunately one of our members, Brian Sheen, has got most of that for Rosen Observatory because it hasn't got a home. So a lot of the kit is actually in my garage at the moment. So it's been there since lockdown started. But yeah, we do have a permanent home, And yeah, and we've become reasonably expert at setting up the trailer, with having done it now quite a few times. As Anita said, even so, even with the trailer open with it is still very weather dependent. And we just hope when we go somewhere that we do get not too much wind and not too much rain.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic, and I think what you've achieved, given the situation, has been quite incredible. And you know, I just, like I said, I can't wait to come down. We as a family, I do visit Cornwall relatively regularly, but I haven't seen the trailer in action yet. But I will definitely keep an eye out for it when the next time we're able to go. So finally, what's next for yourselves and for Sea2Stars, pandemic notwithstanding, obviously?
Well, as I said, I think what's next for Sea2Stars is to try and get back to schools, particularly junior schools. And I would think we would like to try and do that in the spring term if we're able to do so. Yes, we would like to get out again to shows and get the parts of Cornwall that we still haven't reached. I think that's our objective. I think in terms of activities and events, we've basically got a reasonable setup, a reasonable selection of activities and events, which, as Anita said, if people talking can lead anywhere. So what we really need to do is to be able to cover the county more extensively than we have done so far. And I think if COVID lets us, then it has got to be to get out to shows, events, village events, small events, it doesn't matter. I mean, Anita mentioned Sticker Steam Fair, which is in a small village of less than 1,500 people, but it's, you know, we attract people from the area, from a wide area, and again, people are interested. So, and this in a sense is our objective, to get the small events and communities. For example, we have done a couple of talks to women's institutes, but again, that's now on hold. But again, I would like to talk to a couple of women's institutes next year. We were, again, and this again was put on hold with Exeter University. We were setting up a project of careers events for students, that looking at careers that they hadn't thought of. So, you know, instead of being a chemist or a biologist or a physicist or a computer technician, how about being a geophysicist? How about being an astrophysicist? And we were setting that up with Exeter University when it unfortunately it all went pear-shaped. But I would hope to be able to revive that. And again, what I was saying earlier about STEM opportunities in Cornwall. You know, it's not going to be immediate, but that's, so there is a future program when we can get there.
I know, and I guess that's the unknown part of the pandemic for everybody, isn't it? So just a cheeky question just to finish. If you could take the trailer anywhere, within Cornwall or nationally, internationally, where would you take it and why?
Oh, that's time to think about that one. Let Anita have a go. Well, I think she's half my age, so she's a lot quicker on her brains than me.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I think our ambition is really just to kind of reach out to the edges of Cornwall. So, you know, we at least need to go from Land's End to Bude, or you know, really span the county. So we have things still that I think, areas that we need to reach, definitely. I think just also on the other things that are coming up for us, One of the things that we were doing last year is we were working with a series of interns from the University of Exeter who were helping us with our marketing and communications and actually our delivery plan. So that's another thing that sort of got shelved a little bit while we've been in lockdown. And so really to kind of build on that and get our virtual presence a bit more active, get our virtual reach, Facebook, Twitter, online presence a little bit more active and successful, I think is another thing that we need to do over the next year.
That's great.
Right, I've had time to think. And I think what I would like to do actually is to take the trailer to Westminster, just to remind all our political people that Cornwall does exist and show them what we're doing in Cornwall.
And actually just building on that, or just not quite as ambitious as that, but we did have a proposal to bring the trailer to NAM in Bath in 2020. So I hope that for NAM in Bath in 2021, this is still something that we'll be able to do. So even if you don't manage to get down to Cornwall to see the trailer in action, it would be lovely to bring it at least and participate in NAM and show our community, the astronomy community, what we've been up to, and hopefully maybe get some volunteers that would be happy to come down on their holidays, spend a day with us, and yeah, add to that interaction between the fellows and Cornwall Sea2Stars.
Fantastic. It's been lovely speaking with you both today. I've learnt a lot, and it's really excited me about the geophysics, particularly of Cornwall. I think I'll keep an eye out next time we get to visit, and hopefully we see you in Bath or Westminster or somewhere in Cornwall in the years to come. Take care.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you very much, Sheila.
Right, thanks, Sheila.
Thank you so much, Anita and Clint. That was really insightful and has made me extremely excited about the prospect of a trailer going around Cornwall and beyond. Now I think it's time to see the film. Enjoy.
So I'm Clint O'Connor, I'm chairman of Cornwall Sea2Stars, which is an outreach group formed with a grant from the Royal Astronomical Society for the RAS200 project, with the objective of taking the science of astronomy, astrophysics and geosciences out to communities in Cornwall. Well, I think Cornwall has a bright future. Goon Hilly is starting to come together. You know, after years in the doldrums, it's been taken over. It's going to become a working centre, and I hope also a visitor centre for people to see. We can hope that we can get the younger people to find jobs in Cornwall, and particularly I would like to see the young girls in Cornwall get jobs in science.
I did film at university and now I'm going back to go and study science because it's what I wanted to do really, but there was like no encouragement and I didn't have the confidence to do it. So I'm just like starting out on a dream that I've had for a long time really. That's kind of the plan.
So traditionally we've mainly focused on what we call near space, so that's communicating with satellites that are in orbit around the Earth. Those orbits might be going up to what's called a geostationary orbit, which is just under 36,000 kilometers away from the Earth. But we're now branching out and we're diversifying the business a little bit. So the antenna that you can see right behind me is actually being upgraded for deep space communications. That will then support future missions to the Moon, to Mars, to asteroid, to places that are further afield where spacecraft or potentially even crewed spacecraft will go for various exploratory missions.